This video will discuss my thoughts and tactics I use while commanding. The objective of this discussion is to help build synergy within here in regards to the way that I think and approach fights. While no fight is the same and decisions are normally made spontaneously, there is a pattern in my thinking that remains consistent. The simplest way to visualize how I view a fight is through value. I would assign many abilities in gw2 as a value, and the way these abilities interact with each other gain value or lose value in a fight. Allow me to explain. An enemy Zerg is empowering. And Daredevil notices this and optimizes on the fact. The Daredevil shadow steps to the enemy Zerg, spamming the Snap 5 ability. This results in the enemy Guardian rolling, cancelling his empower. Furthermore, an enemy Elementalist goes down. In the panic, an inexperienced Guardian uses his big ability. In this scenario, we've traded Shadow Step, something I'd consider a low value cooldown in regards to a team fight, for a down, a cancelled empower, and a big stab, which is a high value defensive cooldown. The enemy group has lost momentum, and our Zerg can push off the back of that interaction. This would be considered a high value trade. To understand how abilities interact with one another, we first need to establish how abilities actually work in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, every ability in the game has a target hit cap, which is displayed in the tooltip as number of targets. This is true in regards to both damage and support skills. I'll go ahead and display some of the tooltips on the screen. Because offensive abilities are capped at player counters, sacking effectively spreads damage across the group in best case scenarios. Since healing skills have a limited range, sacking also increases the amount of support you'll get from the group. This is why I stress staying on tag so much. This is also why guild builds are important. Our DPS oriented builds are designed to have a 60 point leeway from 2300 armor. Maintaining consistency within our armors allows me to understand how much damage I can expect to take from what kind of bombs, and is why I'm so confident when we melee trade. With a better understanding of how abilities work in Guild Wars and how I dictate value, we may analyze a fight. Things to consider in this clip. Firstly, this clip is from when the guild was on Gate of Madness, we were playing in a lower tier. Secondly, the enemy Zerg does not have an effective commander, but they outnumber us. While unrealistic, this provides an amazing framework to discuss ideas because I'm able to practice these maneuvers freely. Lastly, there's no end to this fight since we kite into the enemy spawn. The win condition is impossible, and that's okay. Okay, I'm on take 2 of this video. We're going to go ahead and set the scenario for this fight. So what's just happened is that we've empowered here. We're getting pushed by a large red group out of Garrison, and we are kiting northwards towards their spawn. I just dropped the Veil, but we have a reveal on, which did nothing, but that's okay. And the group has 25 stacks of might here. So we're kiting backwards, and we're being pushed by, again, a really big group. But what we're looking at here is that because they're so uncoordinated, we're relatively tight, and this group is not. So we instantly go ahead and I drop a marker where I try to pull, and I pull on the marker, and I call a spike. I turn the camera here to make sure that we don't have anybody behind us, but when we turn back again, we can see that we've generated downs here. A lot of the times when I generate downs, I'll cut away from the downs. I won't try to secure them, and the basis of doing that in this scenario is that we've just used a spike. We have people inside of us. We have a really large force back here that's going to push us soon. We don't really have the resources to stick around and save for this. So we go ahead and we continue to kite backwards, and when we kite backwards here, we continue to drop damage behind us and we generate more downs. So now what we have is a stream of downs here, and we can kind of see what the enemy team does. Now, we still have a lot of resources in regards to our sustain, in regards to our warrior bubbles, and in regards to gravity well, which I'm using right here to add more pressure. But so moving forward into these downs, we're okay. We have a shroud here. This shroud's not necessarily going to do a lot of damage because it's not a condensed bomb, and then we have a lot of players that are spread out, and we can optimize on the fact that all these players are spread out. So we're not really focused on the downs here. We're focused on generating more downs because what we really need to do is eliminate any enemy pressure that's going to be coming at us. So we call for a bubble up on the front side. This bubble strips any kind of stability, any kind of resistance, any kind of mending that these players might preemptively have, and I follow up with a gravity well. That gravity well is something that we push into for a melee trade. Now, we're standing inside of a small bomb here. A lot of the bomb is over here, but the group's getting hit by it, and in this clip I'm playing Chronomancer, which moves faster than the rest of the group. So what I'm seeing isn't necessarily what's happening to everybody else. So looking at our player UI here, we have a down, and this is a down that we're not able to save. Doing so, I call to just kite backwards. We have a lot of downs and putting a lot of pressure. Because these forces are so split and uncoordinated, we're going to have people that are rezzing in this backline here. We're going to have people who are scared to step up, and we're going to have people who are overextending. So since we move ourselves out of the situation from over here to this area, a lot of their forces and a lot of their threat isn't necessarily in range of us, and we can come up on the left side here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to range on these downs. By ranging on the downs, because the enemy players aren't stacked, all the players in this condensed area are just going to take damage, because none of these players are helping negate the damage, and that gives us the opportunity to generate more downs while securing these downs. So we spike forward here, and I'll let the clip play for a second. and we just maintain the pressure forward here. I rolled to the right a little bit preemptively because I was expecting a lot more damage, but what we've happened here is we've generated downs. We had an overextending warrior, which I invested in Illusion of Life into, on the basis that we have so many downs that we can probably go ahead and get the rally off him and it's not going to become a problem. And on the basis that we're running 15 people, now 14, we don't want to lose any more people unnecessarily. And I would say that's a pretty good investment into our resources, since there's no MIs used. We're not putting ourselves in any danger by saving this player. But moving forward here, we're just securing downs, and then we kite it backwards. And again, a lot of people will scream at me, we have downs, but these downs here are keeping us safe from all these other players pushing us. They're focusing on resurrecting their boys. They're scared to step up. They see other players going down and dying here. It discourages players from moving forward. So we're cutting up the hill, and we kind of just look for overextenders. I push in a little bit on the right side here, and again, we have really nice small clumps that are less than 5 people. If we range those clumps, for the most part, our bomb is going to be efficiently hitting all 5 of those players. Here, I lose a little bit of control of the fight. I'm not really sure how the enemy group is going to play, but I see a really big lich come out, which is just a big cooldown that might put some pressure on us, and I pull us up the hill for no reason, other than to create space. And what we're looking at here, we're just looking at overextenders. So here, if I pause the clip, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people inside of us. We can kind of just clear these guys out, and we're generating down still, and these players are back here resurrecting their boys still. So there's a big part of just moving backwards, continuously moving, and investing our spike, and then when we don't have the spike, there's no point in fighting into this large group. We haven't really used too much for sustain other than Illusion of Life, which is coming back up in 30 seconds here. But all we're doing is keeping it at arm's length, and we're just picking at the Zerg. Now, if this was on the other side of the map, it would work much better, but because we're on the red side of the map, they're spawning right here. We're going to get hit from the backside eventually, but that's okay, all things considered. So moving forward, we'd like to hold a choke. Chokes are just generally desirable for the reason that it forces clumps, especially when you're playing in a big, when you're playing against the large groups that aren't necessarily on a tag. You need to find a way to force the clumps. I anticipated that they were just going to W push us here, but what really happens is that the enemy group comes out here, which is fine because on this bend choke, we still get a really nice clump. I pull it down a pole here, we get a really big spike. I see a face smash going out here. We generate downs right away. We follow through with a bubble. This bubble is going to discourage players from staying in here. It's going to discourage MIs. It's going to discourage res attempts. Anything that's going to kind of force players to stack up and negate the damage of down staking is just going to push them out of this. So this is a really safe melee trade here. We generated down right off the bat. We followed through with a bubble, and we're just cleaving. While we clear this out, if I recall correctly, we kind of overstay our welcome, but we do get good value out of this. I see the gravity well here, and I instantly try to roll the group left. And at this point, I'm screaming that we need to be out of the bomb. Too many people are staying here, and we're losing too many players for no reason. On the right side here, they're a little bit tighter. I think we would have sustained a little bit better. And I start to identify this, and I pull us out. So I drop the veil, and I try to kite us out, but again, we're revealed. And I don't always notice that when we're fighting, because there's so many things going on. I just try to drop it because it might help. So what we're looking at here is we have 2 more downs in the blob. We've sent out the herd, but within these melee trades, we've used a lot of our sustain. We used a lot of our cooldowns. We don't have a bubble. We don't have, my gravity well's coming up, but we've just pretty much freshly used that. We don't have a lot of our big stabs, etc., etc. And I think I tried to elude in here. I got interrupted. And I drop another gravity well, and this time I drop the gravity well just on the basis of throwing out CC to try to force cooldowns out. They still have downs up, but we can kind of cut it away. And at this point, we're hard leaving. We're waiting for cooldowns. I'm recharging mantras personally. Our tomes are low off for our guardians. Our DPS players don't have spike. We're losing people. And I bring it up into a bend here, and this bend is elevated. And the thing about bringing it into an elevated bend is that you're able to jump into the backline, which a lot of people don't anticipate. So right here in this scenario, this is really good because it forces enemy players into a choke. People don't generally want to push up through here, but we have 2 routes for entry. We can either come up through the left side here and take them head on, or we can jump up over here. And this is like a one-way route. We can use this, but they can't use it to push us. So this is kind of a desirable choke that you want to take. And I look for these kinds of things all the time. Any elevation you can take to drop down into an enemy group is beneficial. So we're bombing the front here, and I believe we generate downs, but I don't think we try to optimize on the downs. Instead, I call for the group to loop around, because again, there's a lot of damage coming out here. We want to avoid this damage. They've invested a lot of cooldowns here, and what we've just invested 2 dodge rolls into moving us into this position. We haven't used any stabilities to counter this bomb. We haven't really used any heals. We didn't take any damage, so this is a good trade. There's a lot of value here being generated in the fact that we didn't use any huge cooldowns. We just used our rolls, and they are investing, you know, I see a Trail of Anguish, I see Shroud Spike, probably the F2 through F5 skills, etc., etc. So we jump down here, we can start grinding on here. And again, these guys are really spread, so all of our bomb that's concentrated is going to be beneficial for the group. But now we have enemy players. I paused a little bit late, we can rewind it here just a touch. We have enemy players that are respawning, and this is where it's becoming a problem, because now, again, we don't have all the cooldowns in the world. We've been fighting for a while, and these players are coming fresh off the respawn with new cooldowns that they're going to be able to push us with. And at this point, I just called a full kite. Again, we're ignoring downs, so the idea is that hopefully they resurrect the downs, and we bring it into a drop. And by bringing it into a drop, essentially what's going to happen is when other players drop, we can bomb here, because he's going to condense them in one spot, but at this point, we're just out of cooldowns, and that's pretty much how the fight is going to conclude. So after watching and reviewing that first clip, I really didn't feel content with the way that the fight went out in that scenario, to explain to you the way that I think. So I'm going to go ahead and just tack a second fight onto the end of this video real fast. But in this scenario, I'm running full open. We're absolutely huge. The people in party 1 are the one who aren't in voice, and the people in parties 2, 3, 4, 5 are in voice. But again, we're really big. We're running open. So pretty much we're being pushed by blue here. We had just wiped red. We were down on the bottom. We had waited for cooldowns, so we're doing well on cooldowns. But we were put in a bad position. Because pretty much there's no way for us to get out of this. We're pinned behind a red tier 3 keep with a blue group in front of us. We're forced to fight. They use their initial bomb on us, and we immediately roll left, and a lot of people, I'm not going to say a lot of people, but we lose people here. And I'm going to be blunt. People who die in the first push when the majority of the group is able to roll left aren't worth investing resources into. There's no reason for me to illusion here. This is impossible to MI because there's so much bomb happening here. It's all condensed, etc., etc. This is just like, it's not worse. It's not worth worrying about. But off this bomb, I immediately roll up to the left side here, and I tuck into this staircase here. And the reason here is when I bring the Zerg here, what we're looking at in front of us, so we have lots of shades, we have some Trail of Anguish, and we have them full pushing here, even though because they're feeling a lot more confident about killing our downs here, they're looking to ride that pressure by moving the group here. One, we're avoiding all their damage and we're moving out of their melee bomb. What I'm looking to do here is to take this high ground. We've managed to generate some downs in here, but I'm not worried about the downs at all. What I'm worried about is the position. So the thing about Necromancer shades is that once you use the shades, we have a lot of shades down here, but once you use your F5, 2, 3, and 4 abilities, they're not nearly as dangerous as you would think they are. So we have a lot of red circles here, but these circles to walk through are safe. We can bring our Zerg around this corner up the staircase without necessarily taking a lot of damage for it. And it's a much better position to be in. And this is exactly what I do. I bring the entire Zerg up the staircase. This all clears up. Shades that aren't pulsing aren't doing anything. This is generally a safe movement to take. And now that we're up here on the high ground, I have a classy meme in here. So we're gonna wait this one out. Now that we have the high ground, we have the ability to bomb from the top. We're only able to be pushed from one side, and we can hold this. The blue team gave up a lot of advantage, just positional wise, because of their commitment to the full push, when they haven't necessarily taken out enough of our group to warrant it. So I let this clip play here for a little bit. You can see we're just ranging on the left side here. We're holding the stairs. I'm not letting them take the stairs back, and we're throwing damage down. And because we're throwing damage down, they're just kind of cut here. They're being pushed by red. So we've got blue in the middle, we've got red pushing us, and we're holding the stairs, forcing them to hold in this position. We bring it back just a touch, because what I'm more worried about is us taking damage than fighting blue on the basis that red is pushing. Red, I believe, has a really nice clump on blue here. And we just throw damage on these downs, and that's when I realized that they're pushing up the stairs, we need to come back and we hold this. So I turn left and I say, focus the living players, don't worry about the downs, and hold your cooldowns. So right now as a group, we are holding things like our bubbles. I'm trying to hold our wells, assuming that the necromancers haven't used them already. I'm holding my pull. That's because I'm much more focused about this red group pushing up on us than the blue group, because the red group has fresh cooldowns coming off this fire key, because we had just wiped them prior to the blue group pushing us. Blue wipes completely. We have the staircase here. They throw out a shade here, and as soon as they throw out the shade, I know that most of the bombs are probably going to come here on the basis that VR is a very coordinated guild when they bomb, and I call for the entire team to trade positions with some. Giving up the high ground here isn't necessarily a bad thing based on their size. What we need to do immediately is avoid the bomb coming in, and trading a roll for a shade bomb is very valuable in regards to maintaining the momentum inside of a fight. So we roll to the bottom here. They get a bubble out, we just keep kiting it out, and now we're kind of in a place between a red group and a red group, but they're really thinned out here. Is not super coordinated, and we can just sustain here because neither group is really throwing any pressure on us. We're ranging over here on the pugs, and we can see that reinforcements are coming in. If I rewind just a touch, you can see that there were boys gliding in here on the left side. Seeing these boys glide on the left side, I immediately turn to push straight up this group here because we need to take this high ground again because you're growing bigger. So we come up here, we res one of our boys, and that was just in the case that this is the more valuable res on the basis that we didn't invest anything into it. We were taking the high ground. These boys were being pushed off. This was free. There was no reason to let the person die here. Had we stayed down here, I wouldn't have invested resources to get to them, and I didn't really, there was no conscious decision going to res this player. It was just that I wanted to take this high ground back, and then immediately taking the high ground back, we're back in a scenario where we can hold the stairs, which is the only place that they can push, and if we want to melee trade, we can come off this right side here. So what we're looking at here is we have downs, but I'm trying to get people to focus on the left side here, and being big is hard to do that sometimes. But I'm just calling the pressure this here, because if they full push us and we melee trade, that might become a problem. We get a kind of bad bubble here. It gets cancelled really early, but it's fine because it did boon strip them. And I bring it to the top of the stairs, and I'm posturing here, and I see there's a gravity bow coming up here, and again, they have a lot of damage come up here. But this left strip of the stairs is completely safe. And while a lot of people wouldn't think of this, if we can bring the entire group through this left side, there's no damage where my cursor is touching right now. This is a 100% a safe movement. The problem is that when you have these big groups, people don't keep up. And when people don't keep up, they get caught in this stuff back here, and that's how people die. But realistically, assuming everybody keeps up, this movement is safe. So we push straight to the bottom of the stairs, and all of their resources are on these stairs now. And we've pushed down out of the bomb, and we can just range it here. This is completely safe for us. Now we stood in this red circles here, but these are all shades that aren't pulsing. These are shades that have already been used. They're not dangerous. You can just pretend they're not there. Understanding which circles to stand in is really important as a commander. These circles are not a threat to us as a group. So after poking on the bottom here, we moved out of their bomb, but then I came straight back up to the high ground again because I don't want to give it up. When they bubble here, I just kite it back a touch, and we keep holding the stairs as long as we can. And the entire idea is we just hold the stairs here the best we can. We get a fresh bubble in here, and on that bubble we're able to push more so. It generates it down. They full trade into us, and I believe, if I recall correctly, that we just bring it down to the right side here. So this forces VR and roll to push up these stairs here. We were able to come down for free. There was no way for them to really stop this, just on the basis that if they're pushing up, I'll go down, and only some of them push up. We would have killed them here. So we pull down here, and then I call for a melee trade. And the reason I call for a melee trade is because I saw things going out on this push when they went up the stairs. I saw Trail of Anguish. They threw out their shades. They threw out stabilities. And they put all those resources into a push that we avoided by jumping down. Therefore, it's a lot more safer for us to go ahead and melee trade here. And I'm very confident in our ability to win this melee trade just on the basis that we had the cooldowns to melee trade, and they invested them on this upward stair push. So off the melee trade, we come back up here. We generate our downs here, and my footage cut out. So that would be the end of this commentary, but that's a little bit of the positioning and how I like to move in the kind of circles that I see that are dangerous and what circles are safer to stand in, etc., etc., and how my brain works when we're going about these fights.